The April 11th, 2016 meeting of the City of Danville Planning Commission is now called to order. We welcome everyone to this meeting today. The Planning Commission is an advisory board of the Danville City Council and is comprised of members who serve on a voluntary basis. Today we have 6 items for which to consider, and there will be a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the case may do so at that time. After the public hearing, commissioners, members may have questions for staff or for those who have spoken for or against the requested change. The Planning Commission will review the case relative to the City Code and make a recommendation to forward to City Council. Council will consider these items on their May 3rd meeting. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Scares?
Here.
Mr. Dotson?
Present.
Mr. Garrison?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Miss Evans?
Here.
Mr. Bolton?
Here.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is a request to amend Chapter 41 entitled Zoning Ordinance of the Code of the City of Danville, Virginia, 1986, as amended, more specifically, Article 3.0 entitled LEDI Light Economic Development District, Section C entitled Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit by adding item number 25 to allow for a waiver of yard requirements, and Article 3K entitled CBC Central Business Commercial, Section C, entitled Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit by adding item number 28 to allow for car washes. If we could have the staff report, please.
The City of Danville adopted the current zoning regulations in 2004. These regulations are amended from time to time to address changes in laws on both the state and national level, as well as for new ideas or concepts presented to the city. Requests have been filed to amend Chapter 41 entitled Zoning Ordinance of the Code of the City of Danville, Virginia, 1986, as amended more specifically at Article 3.0 entitled LEDI Light Economic Development District, Section C entitled Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit by adding number 25 to allow for a waiver of yard requirements, and Article 3K entitled Central Business Commercial, Section C entitled Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit by adding item 28 to allow for car washes. Article 3.0, Light Economic Development District, Section C, Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit, number 25, Waiver of Yard Requirements. Staff has received a request to amend Article 3.0 entitled Light Economic Development, Section C, entitled Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit by adding number 25 to allow for a waiver of yard requirements. With the exception of the Tobacco Warehouse District, a waiver of yard requirements is permitted by special use permit for all commercial districts. However, the current zoning code does not permit a waiver of yard requirements in the Light Economic Development District. Staff has been presented with a case where a warehouse owner would like to sell a single warehouse building that has no yard. The western elevation is abutted by another warehouse, and the southern and eastern elevations already lie on existing property lines. The staff is recommending that a waiver for yard requirements be added to Article 3.0 entitled Light Economic Development, Section C entitled Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit by adding number 25 to allow for a waiver of yard requirements. Article 3K, Central Business Commercial, Section C, Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit, number 28, Car Washes. Staff has received a request to amend Article 3K entitled Central Business Commercial, Section C, entitled Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit by adding item 28 to allow for car washes. The property that is the subject of this request is located within the River District and is therefore subject to the River District Design Guidelines. Any exterior changes to the property requires approval by the River District Commission. The River District Commission reviewed the request on March 10th, 2016. The commission voted 4-0-1. Mr. Lackey abstained, Mr. Davis and Mr. Ranson absent, to recommend approval of amending Article 3K entitled Central Business Commercial, Section C, entitled Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit by adding item 28 to allow for car washes. In keeping with the recommendation made by the River District Commission, staff recommends that car washes be added to Article 3K, Central Business Commercial, Section C, Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit by adding item 28 to allow for car washes.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the public hearing now. Is anyone wishing to come and speak on these 2 code changes that we're specifically dealing with?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Could you move your microphone up a little bit? I think there's some people that are having a hard time hearing.
Up closer?
There we go.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from the members? Okay. The staff, okay. Would have none. Would have a motion, please? Go ahead.
All right, recommend approval of the code amendments as submitted by planning staff.
Second.
Got a second? Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Dotson?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Mr. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is a special use permit application, PLSUP 2016-000047, filed by Vaughn Wellington, requesting a special use permit for the operation of a car wash in accordance with Article 3K, Section C, Item 28, the Code of the City of Danville, at 136 South Ridge Street. The applicant is proposing to operate an indoor car wash at this location. Got a staff report?
If we could, this was the item that was heard last month that you remanded to the River District. We can read the entire staff report or just dispense of it since it's already part of the record for last month. The only change is we went to the River District Commission. They were in favor of it, had no issues with Planning Commission actually granting the special use permit, so we're just bringing it back to you this month.
Okay. All right, well, I'll open the public hearing. And anybody wishing to speak on the car wash, indoor car wash issue? Anybody wishing to speak? Close the public hearing. Any questions, discussion? Motion. Mr. Bolton?
I move we recommend approval of special use permit application PLSUP 2016-00000088 with conditions for staff.
Got a
Second.
second?
Wrong one.
Second? Roll call, please.
Wrong one?
What?
47, I'm sorry, read it wrong.
Okay.
47.
Okay, and do we have a second on that?
I still second it.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Mr. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Mr. Dotson?
Yes.
Okay, the next item, special use permit application, PLSUP 2016-00000088, filed by JEB Realty LLC, requesting a special use permit for a waiver of yard requirements in accordance with Article 30, Section C, Item 25 of the Code of the City of Danville, as amended at 1750 South Main Street. The applicant is proposing to subdivide the parcel, resulting in a 0-foot side and rear building setbacks, and to reduce the required lot frontage from 120 feet to 0 feet. And we're going to have a staff report on that.
The applicant, JEB Realty, is requesting a special use permit for a waiver of yard requirements. The applicant is proposing to subdivide the property so that one of the buildings may be sold. The subdivision would require the new lot to have 0-foot side and rear building setbacks and 0-foot lot frontage. The 102.15 acre subject parcel is the site of the JB Tobacco Storage Warehouses. It is located on the Virginia-North Carolina border. A strip of the parcel extends over the state line into North Carolina. In 2010, JEB Realty LLC sold roughly 7-acre parcel that lies within the subject parcel to Rick Baker Properties LLC. They wish to make a similar transaction now by selling a 3.36 acre warehouse building. The southern elevation of the building lies on the North Carolina state line, and the western elevation is abutted by another warehouse building. The eastern elevation already lies on an existing property line. The subdivision would require 0-foot lot frontage because the portion of the subdivided parcel that would be frontage has an easement placed upon it for use as a proposed future right-of-way. 4 notices were sent to surrounding property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, and a complete report is in front of you. Staff believes that 0-foot side and rear building setbacks and 0-foot lot frontage will not adversely affect surrounding property owners. Staff recommends approval of special use permit application PLSUP 2016-00000088, filed by JEB Realty LLC for a waiver of yard requirements with the following condition. A perpetual cross-access easement agreement is established so that access and parking requirements can be met.
Okay, thank you. Open the public hearing now. Does someone like to come and speak on this item? It may not, it may be.
I've got somebody who I think is gonna help us to try to come in here and adjust that volume. But if
Pull that
if you'll
mic
pull
over
that
to you.
microphone down, they'll be able to hear you.
Hello?
It doesn't sound to
I
be,
guess
it
it's
sounds
on.
like it's not turned on.
Anyway, I'm Mark Johnson with L&D Professionals representing JEB Realty
Think
for
we
this
got it now.
request.
Yep.
I appreciate your time and consideration for our request. As Anna had mentioned, This is very similar to a request this board approved when Rick Barker purchased the building abutting us. And the reason for the zero width, lot width request, we have a future city's public street planned to extend along the front, paralleling Highway 86, which will feed a 23-plus acre, hopefully commercial development in the future. So rather than trying to plat something today and then try to deal with it later, we'd rather just let this request go through now and not have to, when we finally do dedicate the right of way, we won't have to mess with it again. At such time, we do dedicate the right of way, the property will have just under 90 feet of frontage with the new dedicated right of way. I do have the owner representative with us. We'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the commissioners?
Do you have any trouble with the condition that staff has put in?
No, sir. We do have already platted cross-access easements for all the drives throughout those, around those buildings in the interior.
And I think you can see on your sheet, you can see the proposed
kinda-
road.
It's a little hard to see, but it's all that black area on in your handout there on the flat. All that is permanent cross-access easements.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and look for a motion if there's no more questions.
I make a motion that we approve PLSUP 2016-00000088 with the condition for
For staff.
staff.
Okay, do I have a second? Got a second? Mr. Garrison, if you could have the roll, please.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes. Next item is special use permit application, PLSUP 2016-00000087, filed by Suzanne Wright, requesting a special use permit for a duplex in accordance with Article 3E, Section C, Item 2 of the Code of the City of Danville, 1986, as amended at 124 Mount Vernon Avenue. The applicant is proposing that the residential structure be allowed to operate as a duplex. If we could have the staff report, please.
The applicant, Suzanne Wright, is requesting a special use permit to operate a duplex at 124 Mount Vernon Avenue. The property is under contract for sale, subject to a special use permit being obtained for the buyer. The subject parcel is zoned to Old Town Residential. The house sits upon a .18 acre parcel and has been operating as a single-family residence for an indeterminate number of years. However, the residence has operated as a duplex in the past. A site visit to the property by staff has revealed that there are 2 utility hookups, and the structure was at one time divided into 2 separate units with separate entrances, heating units, and kitchens for the upstairs and downstairs. Minimal work would be required to convert the structure back into a duplex. The structure's previous use as a duplex is no longer allowed by right since it has been operating as a single-family dwelling for a period of longer than 2 years. 42 notices were sent to surrounding property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, and a complete report is in front of you. The character of the neighborhood is predominantly comprised of single-family dwellings. However, there are apartment units directly across Mount Vernon Avenue from the subject property. Because the subject property has operated as a duplex in the past, staff believes it will continue to be in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and will not adversely affect the neighborhood. Staff recommends approval of special use permit application PLSUP 2016-000087, filed by Suzanne Wright for a duplex with the following condition. Appropriate permits must be obtained prior to any building renovations necessary to convert the structure from single-family dwelling into a duplex.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the public hearing now. If there's someone wishing to speak on this item, they do so at this time. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? Okay, being none, close the public hearing. Any questions,
I have a
comments?
question,
Yeah.
and maybe staff can answer. I walked back there and looked, and there are actually 3 units for electrical. Does anybody know what the third one is for?
Our understanding, it was a house portion for the center section, and then when it split off into the other two, you had the separates there.
Okay. The reason I ask is there's a building back behind there, and I just was wondering if that ran to that separate building.
We don't know for sure. We thought it was a house meter and a split. We haven't seen the layout on it.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
It's the, where are we in the process? I noticed hands out there, and are we?
Well,
We closed the public hearing?
I have closed the public hearing. Did you?
I was just going to answer his question.
Oh, you're going to answer his question. Okay.
There's a shed in the back.
I tell you what, come on up to the microphone. And give us your name for the record.
Jason Suddeth. I am actually the potential buyer for this house, 124 Mount Vernon. In the back, there's a shed, and it is got that third panel.
Okay.
It's all just straight to that.
It's not livable.
No.
Okay.
Cool.
I have,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
go ahead, Bruce.
No.
I have questions about returning it from a single family to, back to a duplex.
Okay.
How much work is going to be required to do that?
Not much. From what I've seen, the only major things is a couple appliances. That when the family before left, they left a couple random appliances, but it just needs a facelift on the inside. But as far as doors and everything, it's set up. Major work will be needed in the roof itself, but other than that, the house is pretty well prepped.
And you plan to live
Correct.
on one
Yes,
side?
I'm planning to live upstairs while renting the downstairs.
So it's an upstairs, downstairs rather than a
Correct.
side-by-side?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So there's a door on the front and then there's a door on the side.
There's a door directly in the front, and then right around the corner, there's another door on the front end. Like there's a porch
Right.
under the awning, and then in the back, there's another door where I would probably end up having to create a common space in the back, but to where you could go upstairs. There's two stairwells on either side of the house. So I'd end up having to put another door on the back end inside of the house, just so you could get upstairs if you needed to from the other exit.
So you use in the upstairs apartment, which door do you access?
I could use either the back door or the side door.
And the downstairs apartment is the
Front door or, yeah.
Front
or back. So there's only 3 exterior doors, if that makes sense. Okay.
Mr. Wilson, do you have a question?
I've just always had my question about if the person who's making this proposal was in the room, and I assume that
I am.
even though you're not Suzanne.
No, Suzanne
Oh,
is.
I think she's here, but just
Oh,
nothing
okay.
to really. He's going to be the one using it, so I guess that's why he wanted to
Yeah,
speak.
so that makes
We
sense.
could have both answered the question.
Any other questions?
Staff, we have one.
Yeah.
The panel that's on the house, so that's not feeding a house meter setup, it's feeding the building in the back. Is there a sub-panel in the back that,
I think so. I'm almost positive.
we didn't get in the back building, she was in the house itself and see the
I'm
front part.
almost positive that there is a sub panel inside the back shed as soon as you walk in to the right. And then there's a panel when you walk into the main house back door.
Yeah.
There's one right there at the steps, and if you go down the steps, there's one at the basement. Those are the 3 panels that I know about.
All right, we knew the 2 were in the house, I didn't know there was another panel out in the separate building, that's why we thought that meter was for a house setup, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I have another question. We have the comments from the neighbors, but I was wondering if you and Ms. Wright had approached the neighbors regarding returning it back to a duplex.
I have not seen them personally. I do not know.
I don't understand what you mean. You haven't seen the person.
I haven't seen the comments. Like I
Oh.
haven't seen any of the
No, I just meant,
feedback.
have you
Oh, have I talked to? I've talked
approached
to
the neighbors?
I've talked to
yourself?
one neighbor that was out there one day when I was there, kind of looking around and seeing the house itself. But other than that, I have not had any contact with any neighbors. I know a couple people in the apartments across the street, on the directly across the street, and then the house directly to the right, looking at the house. I've mentioned that I was a potential buyer for the house, and her biggest concern was obviously parking, because that street's up narrow to start, but my house has a driveway So for me to do a duplex, obviously 2 vehicles would be present. So there is substantial room in front of the house directly, and then I also have the driveway. So
And so each apartment, how big are they? How many bedrooms and baths?
2 bedrooms upstairs, 2 downstairs. 1 bathroom upstairs, 1 downstairs, 1 kitchen, 1 kitchen. They're almost identical floor plans. I don't know if y'all have plans in front of you or not, but they would end up being 2 and 2. I would try to keep for one person would be what I would be aiming for.
For staff, on his comment, I've been in that property, and it actually is almost a mirror image up and down.
Right.
Do we know that had to be built as a duplex originally? I mean, it's just laid out perfectly. Is there any information in the?
We don't have an original building layout. I was in the house also, and yeah, I saw the same thing. It looks like it had to have been, but I haven't seen an original floor plan, and from the street file, it was only evident to me that it has operated in the past as a duplex.
Looks like it.
I am Suzanne Wright, and I inherited this property from my parents, and they bought it from a gentleman named Mr. Pierce. My parents lived next door to this property for many years. My mother loved this house and always wanted to move next door. When it became available, Mr. Pierce, the original owner, sold it to my parents, and he had single women living there for many, many years, little old ladies, precious little old ladies. And so as far as I know, the only thing that my parents did to make a single family dwelling was to cut 1 door at the base of the steps so that they could go upstairs without going out on the porch and up. So it's
basically
very
built
much
built
it
as a
was
duplex.
built as a duplex, and it has accommodated well for many, many years that way.
Okay. Any other questions for those that are up there? Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from commissioners? Yeah, a motion then? Okay. All kinds of hands going up.
Okay. Recommend approval of special use permit.
Did you close the public hearing?
I'd already closed it, just let them came up, yeah.
Recommend approval of special use permit application, PLSUP 2016-000-0087 with conditions for staff.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Garrison. Roll, please.
Mr. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes?
Mr. Dotson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a rezoning application, PLRZ 2016-000089, filed by Gus Dyer, requesting to rezone from AR attached residential to MR multifamily residential, parcel ID number 58991, and to rezone from OTR Old Town residential to MR multifamily residential, parcel ID number 50393 and 50394. The applicant is proposing to rezone to allow for consolidation and to a development into apartment units. If we could have the staff report, please.
A request has been filed by Gus Dyer requesting to rezone parcel ID number 58991 from attached residential to multifamily residential, parcel ID number 58991, and to rezone parcel IDs 50393 and 50394 from Old Town residential to multifamily residential. The applicant is proposing to consolidate the rezoned parcels so that they may be consolidated and developed into apartments. The total acreage of the 3 parcels is 4.39 acres. In accordance with Article 3G, Section D, 16 multifamily dwelling units may be installed per net developable acre in the multifamily residential district. The applicant has proposed building up to 16 units in a single building that could be up to 4 stories. The applicant is also the owner of the Oak Park Villas the attached residential units that are adjacent to parcel ID number 58991 to the southeast. 53 notices were sent to surrounding property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, and a complete report is in front of you. The applicant has proposed building up to 16 units in a single building that could be up to 4 stories. However, to date, the applicant has not provided staff with a site plan or building plan for the proposed apartments. Without knowing what will be developed and where it will be located on the property, staff is unable to make an informed recommendation. Due to lack of information, staff would recommend tabling rezoning application PLRZ 2016-000089 filed by Gus Dyer requesting to rezone from attached residential to multifamily residential, parcel ID number 58991, and to rezone from Old Town residential to multifamily residential, parcel IDs number 50393 and 50394, otherwise known as Grid 0715, Block 011, parcels 0000028 and 0000026 and 5 respectively of the City of Danville, Virginia zoning district map. Staff has received substantial neighborhood opposition to the request, but not to construction of something similar to the Oak Park Villas. Staff believes by tabling this request, the applicant will be afforded time to generate a conceptual site plan and possible proffer of conditions to address neighborhood concerns. If Planning Commission disagrees with staff recommendation to table this request to allow for the applicant to provide more information and possibly address neighborhood concerns, then staff would reluctantly recommend denial of rezoning application PLRZ 2016-000089 as submitted.
Okay, thank you. Point of order, if I open the public hearing, we can still table it, right?
Yes, sir.
If I just get some
Yeah,
comments.
you could listen to the public hearing and then
Right,
determine
right,
whether
okay.
or not you want to table it.
Right, okay. Well, I'll open the public hearing and see who wants to come forward and discuss this.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Gus Dyer, and I am the applicant, and I have some information.
Okay.
Pass that to you all.
Thanks.
I apologize for the lack of information that I've been able to bring to city before today. I thought that that's pretty much what this meeting was for me to answer the questions that maybe you all had before. I need to answer them beforehand. I do have LA&D working on a site plan for this project. David here can attest to that fact that I have done that. The problem that I'm having is that all that costs a lot of money. And so I really need a little bit of feedback here before I decide whether I'm going to proceed with this project. So I would like to go ahead and have you all comment on it, have the public comment on it, if we can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
All right, I've presented you with just a really, I did it on my computer this morning, so it's not particularly elaborate. On the front page, you will see a small plat and then a front elevation. This is Westover Drive here towards the front of the property. The property is 100 feet deep by 150 feet deep. It shows a 24-foot wide drive going down beside and then 4 parking spaces in the front. The building here, which is a duplex, is approximately 48 by 36. And if you will look at the next page, you'll see a drawing, a floor plan for the unit. They are approximately 850 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Sounds very familiar to what was on Mount Vernon. These will not be as elaborate nor as expensive as the villas at Oak Park. I have had several people come by who have needed something perhaps a little more entry level. So I'm at this point proposing 2 units. The lot itself is actually, technically I don't know whether it's 2 lots or 1 lot. Kenny says it's consolidated by use into 1 lot because there is actually 1 house that sits on 2 lots. The legal description still lists it as being 2 separate lots, and when we purchased it, it was purchased as 2 separate lots. Regardless, under the OTR zoning regulations, the lot could be subdivided into 2 50-foot lots, and so 2 single-family houses could be built in place of the property that's there now. So the difference between 2 small single-family houses and a duplex to me seems a little, doesn't seem like it'd be much of an issue, but maybe it will be. If you will turn to, so this is actually a 2-phased request, and 1 phase is dependent upon the other phase getting approved, so we'll get into that. If you'll turn to the next page, you should have a topo map. If you will look where it says, for the property that fronts on Westover Drive, if you see where it says 907, then you go up and you see the house that sits on 907, and you'll see that it also sits on the adjacent lot to the left, or as you're looking at it on Westover Drive to the right. So those are actually two lots. And then you'll see that those two lots run back to a roughly triangular piece of property located right there on Fairview Avenue. The property on Fairview Avenue is already zoned AR, which is attached residential, which is the same zoning category as the villas at Oak Park. The intention originally was to incorporate both of these lots and to make Oak Park encompass both of these parcels. The topography on this triangular piece is very challenging. It was basically unusable for the AR because AR is really sort of spread out. And in order to get flat areas where you could build, it was really inappropriate for that use. And so what we are attempting to do then would be to get it rezoned to multifamily. The difference between multifamily and AR is that AR does not allow one unit to be on top of another. Other than that, it's basically, AR would be townhouses, MR would be garden style apartments. But it's attached to multifamily, basically, it'd be the same. That parcel contains a little over 3 acres, so under regulations in the AR, we still would be able to build 24 units on that property. What I'm attempting to do, and if you'll turn to the next page, and it's not very clear, I'm afraid that the copies came out a little bit darker than the original. If you will look right towards the middle of the triangular piece, you'll see there's a little black rectangle, if it's clear enough for you all to see. That is basically the footprint of the building that I am proposing for the apartments. And like I say, the apartments are separate from the duplex on Westover, but they're all sort of linking together. And so what I wanted to do there was to show you about what part of this parcel we're talking about disturbing, because the issue that we're dealing with primarily is the new stormwater management regulations. And if we can keep the footprint of this development under 1 acre, then we can not have to worry about so much about the stormwater management regulations. And to illustrate what a problem that is that when I met with Mark Johnson the other day, he was telling me about another project that he was working on. And because the project he was working on was 1.09 acres, that kicked him into the new regulations for the stormwater management, and it increased the cost of developing the lot by $144,000. So I can tell you right now that the cost of $144,000 an acre, you're not going to see any more residential development in the city of Danville because you can't afford to develop those regulations. Either the regulations are going to have to change or people are going to have to get creative. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a little creative here. Instead of spreading the 16 units out like we have at Oak Park, they would go up. Let me give you a little bit of background on Oak Park. I've been working on it for the last 8 years. Actually, I worked on it 8 years, but prior to when we started construction 8 years ago. So I've actually spent 16 years of my life on Oak Park. And you know, it's going through this, getting plans drawn up and financing put in place, and so it's a laborious process. And so I don't start a project, you know, just on a whim. This Oak Park, we're constructing our final 4 units right now. I hope to have them finished by, the last one's finished by June. Those units have been under contract for over a year. They were completely sold out. Since the project was started 8 years ago, we've had 1 resale. So the people who have bought the units there, love the units there, want to stay there. In the last, since January, I was going to tell you, I've had 12 people call me looking for condos. At 1:30 this afternoon, Ann Pritchett called me up and said she had 2 clients that she wanted to bring by. And I said, sorry, Ann, I don't have anything available. So the demand for this type of unit, and the demand primarily comes from older couples or older single people who have large homes where they've raised their families. All of a sudden, they don't need 4 bedrooms. They don't need a big yard. And so what they're looking to do is downsize, and this is the type of unit that they're looking for. The units themselves are approximately 1,200 square feet, 2 bedroom, 2 bath. The floor plan of the proposed apartment building is actually square footage wise a little bit larger than my smaller condos. And so these are sizable units. They will be priced at $1,000 a month plus. I know people hear that and they go, well, who's going to rent those? I have had absolutely no problem at all renting my condos for well over $1,000 a month. I could probably rent 10 more if I had them available right now. So the demand for this is huge because this type of housing is very scarce in Danville. If you'll turn actually to the last page, there's a picture of La George, which is at the end of Westmoreland Court, and I'm sure most of you all are familiar with that building. That is the only apartments in Danville that I would say are comparable to what I'm proposing, and they have 10 units there. For the entire city of Danville, there's 10 units of that type, and so I'm proposing 16 more, up to 16 more. It may turn out that it will be 12. But anyway, and so on this sheet as well, I've included a picture of Oak Park, so if any of y'all are not familiar with it, you'll be able to see that it is a very, very nice project. Like I say, I've spent 16 years of my life working on it, so I don't intend to endanger its desirability. In fact, I am keeping 4 units there as lease units, and so I certainly want to make sure that we protect our property values. The picture at the bottom of the page is I'm actually standing at the site of the proposed apartment building and looking back towards Oak Park. And if you'll look right here, you can just see the roof line of the closest building there. So it's it's behind the tree line. Where the site is very bucolic. I mean, you walk down in there and you don't realize that you're maybe 100, 200 feet off of Riverside Drive. And so I actually think it's a very appropriate and a very attractive site for this type of development. I know that we have some concerns from some folks. I've had people call me about it, and when I've been able to talk to them on the phone, I think I've been able to alleviate most of their concerns. For those folks who didn't have that opportunity, I'm happy to answer any of their questions. And so let me get back to the point about it being a 2-phase project. In order to access this property, the triangular piece, we have to come off of Westover Drive. If you will look on the map where I show you the topography, you'll see the topography coming off Fairview Avenue is very steep. I mean, so there's no possibility of coming off Fairview Avenue. At one time, I had some engineering work done to see if we could get off of Fairview Avenue, and it was about $400,000 worth of dirt that we needed just to create a land bridge to get to something that's buildable. And so the only way to access this property is to come off of Westover Drive. It's about 500, those lots are 500 feet deep off of Westover down to the triangular piece. Because we have to keep this under 1 acre of footprint for the entire project, that includes this driveway. Where you see these 2 lots abut the triangular piece, that's pretty close to where the building is, and that's pretty much indicated by the site plan that I've provided you with. Site plan as it may be. But other than the building and the parking that's going to be required, the rest of the property is going to remain naturalized. It's not going to be denuded. It's not going to be graded out. It's not going to be. Like I say, I think you would probably stand on Fairview Avenue or Westover and not even realize something was back there once the leaves get on the trees. So anyway, I'm here to answer questions. If you all feel like you need to table this, whether they can generate a site plan within a month, I don't know. Perhaps we can get some feedback that would help us guide us in the way in which you would like to see that site plan, how you would like to see it materialize. Then we can do that. If I've answered enough of your questions where you're ready to go ahead and prove it, I'll go along with that too.
Well, let me go and see if there are any questions that you have now that you'd like to ask him while he's up at the microphone about the project.
Just you mentioned the La George. Are you going to have or anticipate having elevators?
Yes.
For the
it's actually with a 4-story building, an elevator will be required.
So you say now it's bucolic. If you were in the woods, you would have no idea. But you're going to have to get rid of those trees to build your building. So then is it
1 acre for less than 1/3, and actually considering the drive coming through, the part where the back of the lot where the drive would come through has already been cleared. And so there are really no trees there. It's not until you get on this piece of property that you actually get to the trees. We're anticipating that the footprint that's actually gonna be where there are trees is gonna be probably about 2/3 of an acre, which is the size of a single-family lot. I mean, so we are really, it's to our advantage, it's economically feasible as well as environmentally friendly to disturb as least amount of property as possible. The more we disturb, the more stormwater management we have to put in place. And so if we can leave the trees there, if we can leave the grass there, then all the rainwater gets sucked up in the ground. We don't have to worry about it.
Sounds like a nice project. Any other questions over here?
Just a clarification. So you say it's 2 phases, so just so I can be
Well, it's
absolutely
two
sure.
parts, right.
This right here.
That's Westover Drive. And
Okay.
if you will look, and I've sort of brushed over this a little bit, but if you will look on actually the first page of photographs, that's what's on this lot now.
Right,
and so-
I get that. So
so what we're
would the
proposing-
road go past it, the drive-in,
The
go
little
past it
plats you have
into
here-
the,
Right, this is how it would be laid out. This is Westover Drive.
right?
This is the structure we're proposing to build.
And there's one of those.
Just one. This
Okay.
is a duplex. This is 2 units.
So you
This
both
is-
drive
this is-
past it to get into the apartment complex?
Exactly.
Excuse me?
You'll
Yeah.
drive past that to
Okay,
go to
and
the park.
then, would there be access from where your Oak Park
No.
residence is into this
No.
area?
No, as a matter of fact, we're estimating that the floor level for the lower unit, for the bottom unit, but these are probably going to be 15 to 20 feet below the floor level of the closest condos. And so it's actually going to sit down
Right.
the valley. So I guess that's an attractive way to call it.
Yeah, I've walked the
Not a gully,
property
a valley.
over there.
Okay. Do staff have any questions? How do you feel now for additional information provided for you?
Without the site plan, we're still, we need just a little more to go on. We've got a conceptual idea, and based on the concerns of the neighbors, and again, I'd like to hear some of the neighbors' concerns.
Yeah, I'm just going to see what you thought. You still feel like you need a site plan?
We need a little more information.
Well, can I ask you, what more do you need?
We'd like to know exactly how the building's going to sit. The floor layout, is this something you're going to condition? Are you willing to proffer that this is how the layout's going to be until we know the...
I mean, are you requesting certain setbacks, or, as long as we meet the...
As long as you meet the minimums, I'm not requesting anything above and beyond that.
We're gonna do that. We're not gonna submit a site plan that doesn't follow rules and regulations.
But I'd like to see, landscaping, I'd like to see buffering,
Well-
some of the things that usually come up at this meeting.
Okay, well, what I can tell you is that the only part that we're gonna disturb is exactly what we need to put in the building in the parking lot. And so, as far as denuding areas in order to make them green spaces back again, probably is not gonna be on the table. And if that's something that you're gonna require, then I can tell you we're probably gonna pull the plug right now, because, like I say, once we get over that 1 acre, all hell breaks loose. And it's just, and so if what's there now is agreeable, like I say, that's what's gonna abut the neighbors. The only thing that would change would be, if you wanted landscaping around the building itself. That's not gonna affect the neighbors in any way, because they're gonna have 100 feet of trees between where the landscape is and where their property is anyway, so. Is that
So-
something that you have?
I have a question on that. So you are currently having L&D do a site plan?
Yes. Right.
All right.
But we're in the preliminary stages of it. And
But
if-
that would come about whether we were meeting today or not?
Yes. Right. Like I say, what I need here is some feedback, because at this point, I can pull the plug and walk away, and I've been.
Well, the only
encountered
problem
a lot fewer expenses. I've got Jeffrey Bond waiting down at Solex to design the building. I'm gonna have to come up with $5,000 to do that. So if I don't get some positive feedback, then I can save myself $5,000.
Well, I think the only issue for me is that we don't really know, at least I don't really know what positive feedback to give without having a more detailed and clarified, other than just you saying, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this.
Right.
Part of our job here, especially because we've had a lot of neighbor questions, and some of those are actually in your other properties.
Right.
Without having something that we can kind of verify, it's very difficult for us to know exactly what we're talking about here. I understand your concept is there, but our job is kind of sort this stuff out.
Well,
And
I
I even
realize-
hear them saying they still need
Right,
more.
I realize the picture paints 1,000 words, but
Okay.
Well,
I can
perhaps
speak
we could
1,000
hear,
words if you need me.
perhaps we could hear from the neighbors,
Right,
and then we
I'm-
could
Right,
Yeah.
right.
give a
That's what I-
feedback to you
Right,
afterwards.
because, like I say, I mean, other than the property directly on Westover Drive, I don't know that anybody's gonna know this building's there other than the people who live there. And if the people who live on Westover Drive object to trading this for this, then, you know, that's their prerogative, but I think it's a little questionable, so.
All right, let me get some more questions in, and if we got some more, we'll call you up. Thank you.
Gus, is this your layout?
Yeah,
Okay, now I thought you said 2 bedrooms and 2 baths.
no, 2-bedroom, 1 bath.
2 bedroom, 1 bath.
Right.
Okay.
In the duplex, he said 2 bedrooms, 2 baths.
2 units each.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Gus. Let me get some other folks. Anyone else wish to come up and have any say in this item or ask a question or so forth? Come up to the mic, please, if you're interested.
My name is Carolyn Brown. I live at 101 Naples Street. When I walk out of my front door, I'm facing this large lot on the corner. The one that is shown up here. I haven't had the opportunity to see what he's presenting now. But I didn't get how you plan to get people in and out of that bottom. Are you planning to come into Fairview Avenue?
No, we're coming off Westover.
So we got 2 lots up there with an apartment on it, and we're gonna have another apartment in here to get out of those 2 lots also. I think we need to see more with that. We will object to any entrance into Fairview Avenue. Anyone who travels that knows it's a wreck waiting to happen every day.
All right, this is the property that I purchased on Westover.
Yes.
So we will enter Westover here and come down this way, and the building will be approximately right here.
Okay, Gus, let's go about this a different way. Go ahead.
All right, the one you're saying you're gonna build on Westover will actually be down here on this line?
Ma'am, let's keep it this way, because, he's already got a plat and and we're gonna probably end up tabling it, so we'll have a more definitive plan on how things will be laid out. But,
Yes, well, I think the plan will help, and I would like to see that. I know this lot he's talking about. It's a gully, basically.
Right.
I also know the people down, many of the people down in Park Far in his development there. It's Oak Forest is a very pretty place, and the purpose for what it was built, the elderly citizens and things are very pleased with what it is now.
Right.
And were very upset when they first got this letter. And I went down to see one, and she said, "Oh, you don't understand. I've talked with Gus just this morning. My neighbor told me she called him and he wouldn't return her call, but he's only going to build one little building up on Westover Drive, and it's not gonna bother us one bit." I thought, all right, if that's what he's gonna do, but I didn't understand with the 3-point-something acres down here, this big lot, and these 2 little lots up there, the reasoning. And that's why I'm here today. I don't understand that. I think the people that, down at Oak Park have been misled.
Well, I think
And
maybe they just didn't understand the whole concept.
Well, what he told her was we were looking at the map wrong. Well, I don't know how many ways you can look at this map up here, which is what we all got.
Right.
and
Well, I
see
tell you
the
what
2
we're gonna
lots.
do. We're gonna get a better plan, a better map for you.
All right.
And what I'd recommend is, actually have a conversation maybe with a few of the neighbors.
I've had conversations with neighbors, and also in their homeowners association agreement, there's a clause in there where they acknowledge that I have an additional parcel next door, and that they would not interfere with my ability to develop that parcel.
Okay, well, I'll get back to that in a minute. Just hold that, because you're not at the microphone. We need it on the record.
Well, that's basically, I had questions on his plan, but from what he's told us today, his plan changed, the whole ballgame's changed. It says in there that that the property borders on multifamily dwellings. I don't know of an apartment house in the whole area. I guess the project down next to Westover, down by Haley's, down in that area, would be considered that. But I don't know of any apartment buildings that border it or are in that area.
Okay.
And my neighbors that I've talked to, we haven't been able to figure out where they would be. And also he says ingress and egress into Fairview, Westover and Fairview. We oppose Fairview Avenue. And in fact, when he put the original park in, that was the same question, and I talked with Mr. Gilly then, and he asked me to write the letter from my neighbor, and I did write the letter to him objecting to it, and they didn't. He fixed it so they go in and out of 58.
Right, and,
So-
and there will be no entrance and exit on this on this property on Fairview.
That's
That-
what
that's
we're
already-
asking.
that's
No
already
entrance to that,
established.
No. And the traffic, I mean, it says moderately high. It was very high before, and since then they've added. Sam's has come into here. Fairview Church has increased that kindergarten to a full day care. There's more traffic from that. And I'd say it's very high, and especially Westover, where they've added bike lanes and there's no sidewalk. I noticed the school board said they had no objection. I don't know anybody up there that would put their child out to walk to even the school 2 blocks down the street because of traffic. So that was not a legitimate approval, in my opinion, from the school board.
Okay.
But anyway, I don't think since you've started this table to get more information,
Yeah.
will we get another letter? Will we be told what it will be at that time?
Yes, there'll be another public hearing.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else got any things they want to come forth and bring to the meeting? Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I am Ed Paul Hamus. I'm chairman of the school board for the city of Danville.
Right.
We received the same letter because Park Avenue School's property is just barely within the 300-foot radius from the property in question. At our meeting last Thursday evening, without having some of the details that we have just heard today, the members of the school board voted unanimously to respond with no opposition. The only public statement that was made by me, and it was to simply say that if the apartments would be approved and might attract young families with children, that we would look forward to the opportunity for them to be educated at Park Avenue or other schools in the city of Danville. From what I've heard today, I think the issues may not be relevant to the schools, but I did want to explain our letter.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. Okay. Anyone else in the audience wants to speak on this? Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. And questions and comments from commissioners?
No, I mean, this just I always have a comment. I mean, this just goes to like just a very basic issue of preparedness and neighborliness, right? I mean, obviously, some kind of plat, some kind of like layout, a placement, is the kinds of things that we really need to have legitimate discussions about where it is on property. That needs to go into the hands of the neighbors, and we need to get something for that when we can make really, really wise decisions.
Right.
You know, this may turn out to be a fantastic project that all the neighbors think's wonderful, and I think that's a possibility here. Now we've heard a little more, but the thing is, it's just almost impossible for us to make a wise decision based on the information that we have. So the only question really to me is either we reject it, right, in this proposal, or we table it and give the opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah. I think it looks like a good project and something to be, a nice place in the city. To me, as being in the real estate business, I can see what he's doing and I can understand it pretty easily, but I can also see how other people cannot. So I think that weighs to your point that I think if we had a plat that would show it, could cut back a lot of the concerns of people, because you could show them in black and white. This is the entrance in, this is the entrance out. Not messing with the trees. We're not doing anything. It's going to be all wooded. It's going to be buffers. It's going to be shown. You won't even know it's there.
Well, at least if they're opposed to something, I mean, this is significant opposition given comparison to other things we do. And if they're opposed, at least they're opposed to something that they know exactly what it is, as opposed to just like a general thing. So,
right.
That's my 2 cents.
Did you have anything?
I will agree with that 2 cents.
Yeah.
100%.
I agree as well, and the fact that the planning department has requested this and does not have it.
Well, they didn't request it till day before yesterday. in his office yesterday and said he got a plaque, so I didn't know he did one. Because you all have passed, things in the past without plaques.
Well,
Called you in on Saturday? He called you on Saturday?
And we got our packets through email a good while ago.
Mr. Gilly only questioned me about my plaque. Was that last week?
Well,
Well, that's all.
it's kind of immaterial.
It doesn't
because
matter.
The bottom line is, we can't make, for me at least, I'll say I can't make a informed decision. We've got neighbor opposition that because really they don't know what's going on, it just seems prudent to table this, give that time, and then we can deal with the real issues.
I've got the public hearing closed. Well, come to the microphone if you have something you want to address.
If I submit a plat that meets all of the zoning requirements, and basically that's gonna be setbacks, are you gonna have objections to that? And if there are a possibility you have objections to that, I'd like to know what they are now so we can make sure that we don't have to come back a third time.
Well,
I'm not sure I can object to something I haven't seen.
Well, what I'm saying is that what will be submitted will be a building that meets all the requirements as far as setbacks.
I think we need to see an entrance and
And so
ingress
you-
and egress and showing, the buffering and the things so that would answer the neighbors' questions.
And
I mean,
exactly where it's gonna be.
It would help you a lot.
On what you have provided here.
Okay. But there's no feedback as to where you feel like it should be.
The building itself?
In other
No.
words, I have to submit it and then y'all can go yay or
That's-
nay instead of you telling me, well, we would like to see it sitting closer to Westover Drive, or we'd like to see it sitting further to the east or further to the west.
well,
I mean,
the professionals that you have working,
yes.
Oh,
I'm also a
E&D.
professional.
Right.
I
I mean,
guess we're-
but you've hired these people, and Jeff, these people are good at what they do. And, I think it would make a big difference if we had a sense of their,
But no feedback as far as what you think it should look like.
What do you and your professionals think it should look like?
Well, I have
And
told
where
them,
y'all think it should be?
because it is a very challenging site, I have told them to try to minimize the amount of site work that would need to be done to get the building constructed. In essence, if on one part of the lot I have a slope like this, and on one part of the lot I have a slope like this, then let's go with this part, because this requires less foundation work and less fill. And so that's how they're gonna design it. And if, in fact, I come back with that plan and you go, well, you know what, we sort of like this, but we sort of would like it better if it was sitting maybe 50 feet further to the east or further to the west.
Personally, I don't think that's our decision to make.
Really?
I think we're looking at zoning issues. I
Right.
think
Well,
if it's done by the.
Right, and so that's what I'm here with, is basically asking you all if you feel this is an appropriate place to build multifamily housing. And I'm gonna tell you that the site plan is going to comply with the city's rules and regulations. And if that's all you can care about the city's rules and complying with the rules and regulations, if you are asking for proffers or some other conditions be placed on the project, I'd like to know that now, if we can.
You mentioned, just for feedback,
Right.
the La George.
Right.
Okay. Well, if that's what you're planning on, I know from real estate that that would be a wonderful project. The La George stays full.
Right.
There
They
is
have a waiting list. I talked to
there
Ms.
is
Shields
a
the other
need.
day.
There
Right.
is a waiting list.
Right.
But I think we need to know that for sure. You need to bring us something that's certain, but
Well,
if
I'm
you
gonna
brought
tell you
that
right now
in,
that
my
if you're-
feedback would be.
If you're telling me I gotta come up with a $5,000 set of plans to bring to you and let you look at it before you can tell me yea or nay, I'm gonna drop the whole project, because I can't spend $5,000.
Oh, I don't know that we need that, but I mean, you've said that's what you're gonna do.
Right.
Something.
Right.
To,
I mean,
in that
I've said it. I mean, what else? I mean, you want me to write it down and sign it? I mean, what are you asking for?
We're asking for your best site plan.
Right.
That's
Site
what we're
plan.
asking for.
And as long as it meets the city's rules and regulations, you all will be comfortable with that.
I'm not gonna say that today, no.
Well, but that's,
until I see
then
it.
tell me if I submit something that meets all the city's rules and regulations, what you might find in that you would object to, so I can make sure we don't.
I can't know until I see it. I honestly don't know what I can object to
and
until
part
I
of,
see it.
and also part of our job is not just whether we like your plan. Our job is also to respond to neighbors who will be looking at that plan. I mean, our job here is to really sort through the issues of
Right.
any facility. I mean, really, it's no different,
and do
it's no
what's in the
different
best
than the
interest of
car
the entire
wash.
city of Danville. Yes,
It's
that's-
no
that's your
different than the car wash that we dealt with for a couple of months.
Well-
We had to sort through the multi-issues
I
that were
mean,
involved there.
I know that they mentioned that they sent out 53 notices. And we had one person here objecting.
Well, we've got a
You
whole
don't
lot
have
more.
to-
We've got a lot more here. That's
Well,
it.
but they didn't bother to show up, and a lot
Well,
of those
and there
folks,
may
a lot
be
of those
others
folks
in the
I've
room
spoken
that
to
just
on the
aren't
phone
speaking.
since that time.
Can we ask if there are others in here that actually live in that area that objected
Sure.
and sent
Is
these
there
in
any
but
other
do not
people
wish
that
to
live here?
speak?
Well, we have some folks here. Now Connie, I spoke to Connie yesterday, and he said he didn't have any problem with it.
Okay, well, let's get back to order here,
Okay.
because we're getting kind of way out of line.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had the public hearing, I've allowed everybody time to speak. We, as a commission, I think, agree that we need something other than, I mean, I'm sorry that this didn't, I mean, this little black dot, it's hard to see. Don't say nothing. This little black dot is hard for us to see and maintain where the driveway's coming in. I mean, I can visualize it, but I think a lot of people have a hard time, and to me, that's the simplest thing. I don't know how detailed a site plan the city requires.
We have standards in the code that they're supposed to meet for the site plan. Some concerns that were raised today were access to Fairview, number of units, how the building is going to be located. I'm not going to look for where it's placed on the lot as long as it meets setbacks, but still, if we're not going to have access to Fairview, the plan shouldn't show that. If it's only going to be a single building, the plan should only show one as opposed to 5 or 6 small buildings. That kind of thing that may be able to address the neighbors' concerns. That's the purpose of having the plan
Right.
submitted to it.
I think so. So, any other questions or
I'll
comments?
do a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. I move recommend tabling of rezoning application PLRZ 2016-00000089.
Second?
Okay, roll call, please.
Is that for a definite time to the next meeting?
Yeah, just, should set it for a month.
That's
They
what
give
I'm
you enough
asking.
time to have something to bring back? Okay, okay.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So you amend your motion to table it till next month,
Table it until next month.
and that's been second.
Yes.
Okay, now the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Dotson?
Yes.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Okay, next item
Can I
on the...
make one comment?
Huh?
Can I make one comment about this? Mr. Guy, is there any way that you could announce a place to meet with these people and to see if they show up, the neighbors? Maybe the paper would print when you could be available? And if they don't show, then you know,
Well, Mr. Jones, to be perfectly honest with you and be perfectly frank, there are some people who will object to something and there's nothing I can say.
I understand that.
So they will stand here. I feel that it's my responsibility to educate you folks. You folks were appointed by city council to make this decision. And so, you are the buffer between the folks who are unreasonable and.
Excuse me. I don't mean to interrupt. We do not make the decision. We recommend to city council. They make the decision.
And so, I feel like it's my responsibility to educate you all. And I can't go out and, like I said, with 53 applicants on this, I don't have any place where I can host 53 people. I mean, if they didn't bother to show up today, if they didn't bother to call me, I mean, like I said, I had 6 or 7 people call me, and after I talked to them on the phone, they were all very positive about the project. And so, it's the intent, I'm willing to educate the folks who want to call and find out about it, but then I'm willing to call and find out about it, I don't know if I should be tracking them down.
Okay.
We'll
All right,
see
that's-
what attendance
that-
is
that-
next
that's-
month.
That's good, that's good. We've voted and passed it, and it's tabled. Okay. Next item, rezone application PLRZ 2016-000090, filed by Richard Rowland, requesting to rezone from SR Suburban Residential to Conditional HRC Highway Retail Commercial, a portion of parcel ID 70928. The applicant has proposed to rezone a 50-foot by 310-foot strip of parcel ID number 70928 so that it may be consolidated with parcel ID number 78531. We could have a staff report, please.
A request has been filed by Richard Rowland requesting to rezone a 50 by 310-foot strip of parcel ID 70928 from SR Suburban Residential to conditional HRC Highway Retail Commercial. The applicant is proposing to consolidate the rezoned portion with parcel ID 78531 so that it is more suitable for development. Parcel ID 70928 is 8.89 acres and is zoned SR Suburban Residential. It is the former site of the Carter's Restaurant, which was demolished in January of 2014. The .70 acre parcel that Carter's Restaurant sat on was subdivided from the subject parcel in January of 2015. The 50 by 310-foot strip to be rezoned and consolidated with parcel ID 78513 extends from the northeast corner of the subject parcel to Riverside Drive. Parcel ID 78513 was itself subdivided from the subject parcel in March of 2014 and was rezoned from SR Suburban Residential to conditional HRC Highway Retail Commercial in February 2015. 10 notices were sent to surrounding property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. A list on responses in front of you. Staff recommends approval of rezoning application PLRZ 2016-000000 and a bunch of other O's, 90, filed by Richard Rowland requesting to rezone from SR Suburban Residential to conditional HRC Highway Retail Commercial. A portion of ID 70928, otherwise known as Grid 9707, Block 006, Parcel 000001 of the City of Danville zoning district map. The conditions will match those of the previous rezoning and allow for consolidation of the two parcels.
Okay. Open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward.
Hi, I'm Rick Rowland. I'm the property owner. I'm back again today because when we first subdivided this piece of property, I had some grand plans about maybe someday doing something further back on the other adjacent property that I own, further back from 58. Due to cost and other reasons, I've totally lost interest in pursuing that. So the idea was just to fold this 50-foot strip into the existing property that's for sale in hopes of making that a little more desirable. It'll make it a little bigger, and so maybe we can get something going on that. So that's really all it amounts to.
Okay.
Questions?
Any questions for Mr. Rowland? No? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Not for Mr. Rowland.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item from the audience? Okay, being none, I'll close the public hearing. Did you have a question for staff, or?
Yeah, on this property that we've dealt with a few times, originally we were dealing with it related to apartment complexes.
Correct.
Is that true? I remember that correctly. By doing this, will it open that up as a possibility again, or?
It's still conditional highway retail, has the same limitations that the other parcel had. All it will do is allow for an additional strip that was on the east side of the property to be added to it, just to make the original commercial, well, the second commercial piece slightly larger than what it was originally.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Motion?
I'll do it. Recommend approval of rezoning application PLRZ 2016-000090.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, and a roll, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Dotson?
Yes.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from March 7th. Any comments, changes, corrections on that from anyone?
Make a motion, we approve.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Next thing is other business, and before this gets away, going back to the Gus Dyer issue, what's the minimum site plan requirements that someone has to have to make you guys happy, and also to give us enough information to try to make a good decision on it?
It's actually spelled out in the subdivision ordinance what they're supposed to have listed on it. And if you'd like me to read the whole
Well,
chapter.
I guess what I'm getting at is it something that you have to go to an LED and spend thousands of dollars?
No,
or can you do something?
You don't necessarily have to go to someone and spend thousands of dollars. If you're a capable draftsperson, then you can usually do that on your own. And we've had plans that come in, you know,
Right.
they've done on their own. This project, when we knew that there'd be potential for concern, we were hoping to have a plan. When it didn't come and we started receiving substantial questions from the neighbors, I don't think the neighbors were opposed to the request at all. It's just they didn't have information as a staff. We couldn't answer their questions. So that's why we recommended, we didn't recommend denial unless we didn't have a plan, because we knew that there were things we thought could be addressed. It's a great project, the villas that's already there, and I think that an additional project could potentially have that same kind of feel for the area. We need more information to make that decision.
Right.
So,
And I
but
would
yeah,
like
it
to
is
go on
spelled
the
out.
record and say we do as well.
Right, right. Well, I think so. I don't know whether it just got brought premature or whether he just didn't feel like it was necessary or,
The application came in at the last minute.
okay,
So there was not substantial time for a lot of things to work out that we can usually work out ahead of time.
okay.
Commission has directed staff recently to make sure that we have these kind of things, you know,
Right.
that we're not coming to you without the information, especially if there are going to be concerns we feel from neighbors regarding it. In this case, we received that kind of concern, so we were taking direction from you and recommending tabling it. As you said earlier, the same with the car wash. Because that falls under somebody else's review, we thought it was prudent that they got to review it. In this case, we think that this may be able to address some concerns. Where you ask if he would meet with the neighbors, it's not really his position, although it would help if he would go meet with the neighbors, but if not, if we have that information, we'll send it out to the neighbors. So as we send our letters, we're going to send letters out again telling them that this item's been tabled. If we have any type of plan, we'll attach a copy of that plan with that letter. So maybe that will help alleviate it for next month.
Right, yeah. Well, I agree. If you got pictures and you can see it, it's a lot easier. And I regret that we didn't have all
I just
that.
recalled a couple of times Averett has come to present something to us.
I think they have a bigger budget
and
probably.
they almost always have, you know, a plat and an elevation. And I know it's expensive, you know, I get all the trickiness of that, but you just gotta have something to make decisions on.
Well, you gotta have enough to answer people's questions. That's the thing. That's the reason I was asking about how expensive a thing, and I think something can be done in a less expensive way and still address the concerns and the issues, so I think it's good. Any,
I have another comment related to that. Okay, you said it came at the last minute, so would it have been feasible for y'all to work on it for another month before it's brought forth to us so that everything is done?
If they turn them in by the deadline, we try to set them up for the next meeting. As they say in business, time is money. So if we have it, we try to set them up, at least get the ads in the newspaper and everything else. And that affords the applicant time, if they need another week or something to get something to us, they haven't missed that deadline. In this case, when it comes in late and we set it up to go and has to run in the newspaper 2 weeks before the meeting, a week before the meeting, has to be to the newspaper a week before that, so we're 3 weeks out. There is usually time to get some things, some of those last minute items in, and us still be able to get them to the neighbors and then still have time to make the staff reports for you. So we try to not, if it's not fully complete but substantially complete, we'll process it. In this case, it was what we considered substantial, but it wasn't fully, and that's why we recommended the tabling. So,
But we have asked in the past if something's going to be contentious that we have longer than
Correct.
receiving the packet on Friday.
and you got your packets early this time, I think. We tried to email them
you
last
got the email.
I was going to say, we're trying to do the email. The mail copies are coming harder, but that's why we're doing the electronic PDFs. We figure everyone nowadays has the ability to look it up. At least you can see the visuals beforehand, and then the hard copies come afterwards.
Right, again,
No,
but we
that's very
didn't have any other information than what was in the print packet.
I didn't have it until it was passed out today. I saw it at the same time you
And
did.
that's my point. We, contentious items, we asked for more time to study something.
Okay, any other business from you?
The items that went in front of City Council last month were approved. We do have cases for next month already submitted, so there will be a meeting in May. Mr. Bolton's already said he won't be here, so if anyone else is unable to attend the meeting in May, please let us know.
I got another comment.
Okay.
About the items that were approved by City Council. I'm concerned again that people are going directly to City Council and expressing their opinion for or against and bypassing the Planning Commission meeting. I just want to make that noted.
I'm not following what you mean.
The shooting range,
Uh-huh.
I think a couple people showed up at city council that did not come to the planning commission. We had expressed before that our concern that if you, planning commission is the first base, so to speak, that you come and
Right.
express your opinions for or against rather than going directly to city council.
Well, okay. I mean, we don't have any,
Maybe I'm not making this.
I think it's important just to say that as a reminder.
yeah.
Well, it is possible that some of those people that went to city council were outside the 300-foot. And they read about it through the paper when we discussed it in the planning commission. And they might have shown up at city council, but never had the opportunity to come to planning commission to discuss it.
Right. That's true. I mean, we don't have any control over who comes and who doesn't come, but I mean, it definitely should, I mean, it does come to us first, so we, and,
But the 300-foot range is, just like today, there were people in Oak Park that did not get the letter because they were outside of the 300. There were, I think, about 7 units outside of the 300-foot range that did not get it, even though these people are in the same area and are affected by it because basically they bought these duplexes and they're all, there are no children over there. I mean, these are elderly people.
right.
And, you know, when you start saying there's going to be an apartment 300 yards away or 300 feet away, they're going to get upset. And some of those people might show up for council that wouldn't show up here because
Yeah,
they didn't
yeah.
get the letter.
They certainly have a right to come anyway, yeah.
So,
That's just the mailing parameters for that, right?
That's a parameter established by city council.
yes.
Right.
The law actually only requires us to notify adjacent property owners and those across a public right-of-way.
Right.
City council, it used to be 150 feet. Probably 15 or so years ago, I'm dating myself. I don't remember how long ago it actually changed, but it's been a long time ago
Yeah.
that they changed it to 300 feet just to make sure that additional notifications were sent. I mean, if you could go 5, you could go 1,000, and still someone's going to say that they didn't know.
Right.
That's why we put the ads in the newspaper and a bunch of other things to try to notify people the best we can.
And you're generally over the 300 feet. You
If
tend
it
to
comes
err.
close to it, we kind of
Yeah, you tend to err on the long side.
Yeah,
Right.
we
Yes.
do. And also, these meetings being held during the daytime sometimes impacts the ability for people to come.
Right. That's true. Okay, any other comments? Meeting adjourned.